More than 2,000 years ago, a philosopher wrote about a civilization so powerful it ruled the seas, and then vanished in a single night. No ruins on land, no survivors, just a story. But what if Atlantis wasn't a myth, and we've been searching in the wrong place all along? What if the greatest civilization in human history didn't disappear slowly, but vanished in a single night? Not a gradual decline, not centuries of war or decay, but one violent moment. Earthquakes, floods, the sea rising like a wall, and by the next morning, an entire empire was gone. No survivors powerful enough to rebuild it, no monuments left standing above the water, no clear place on any modern map, just a story. For more than 2,000 years, that story has haunted historians, explorers, and anyone who has ever wondered whether our understanding of the past might be incomplete. A civilization called Atlantis. At first, it sounds like mythology, a tale invented by ancient storytellers to entertain or warn their listeners. But the strange thing is that the story did not come from an obscure legend or a forgotten poem. It came from one of the most respected thinkers in human history, a philosopher whose ideas still shape the way we think today, Plato. And according to him, Atlantis was not just a myth. It was once a powerful empire, a civilization so advanced and so wealthy that it dominated large parts of the ancient world. Its armies were unstoppable. Its navy ruled the seas. Its cities glittered with temples, harbors, and walls built from precious metals. Then suddenly, it was gone. The islands sank beneath the ocean, swallowed by a catastrophe so violent that Plato wrote, "It happened in a single day and night." If that story were told today, many people would immediately dismiss it as fiction. But what has always fascinated me is this. The more we explore our planet, especially the oceans, the more we discover that history is far less complete than we once believed. Entire cities have been found beneath the sea, civilizations that vanished so completely that historians once believed they had never existed at all. Ports, temples, statues, and streets buried under layers of water and sediment for thousands of years. And that raises a question that has been quietly growing in my mind for a long time. What if the story of Atlantis isn't simply a myth? What if it's a memory, a distorted memory of something that really happened in the distant past? Hello and welcome to Hidden Truth Videos. This channel exists for people who are curious about the mysteries that history has not fully explained yet. The strange discoveries, the forgotten stories, and the questions that still linger beneath the surface of what we think we know. If this kind of exploration fascinates you as much as it fascinates me, consider subscribing to the channel. Your support truly helps this journey continue and allows us to keep creating deeper investigations into the hidden stories of our world. Because the truth is, the more I read about lost civilizations, the more I realize how fragile even the greatest societies can be. History tends to present the rise of civilization as a steady, upward path. Small villages grow into cities, cities become empires, knowledge accumulates generation after generation. But the archaeological record tells a very different story. Civilizations rise, and sometimes they disappear just as quickly. The Maya once built magnificent cities deep in the jungles of Central America. For centuries, those cities thrived, filled with temples, astronomical observatories, and bustling populations. Then, for reasons that are still debated today, many of those cities were abandoned. The jungle slowly reclaimed them until they were nearly erased from memory. The Roman Empire ruled vast territories across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Its roads, aqueducts, and architecture reshaped the ancient world. Yet even that immense empire eventually collapsed, leaving behind ruins scattered across continents. History is filled with examples like this. But Atlantis is different, because unlike Rome or the Maya, Atlantis seems to have vanished almost instantly, not slowly fading away, but disappearing so completely that even its location became a mystery. For centuries, most scholars believed the story was simply a philosophical allegory, a fictional warning created by Plato about the dangers of arrogance and moral corruption in powerful societies. And maybe that explanation is correct, but something about the story has always felt strangely persistent, almost like a shadow in the background of history that refuses to fade. Because every time explorers dive deeper into the oceans, they uncover new clues about the ancient world, ruins that shouldn't be there, cities that sank beneath the sea, structures whose origins are still debated. And every time one of those discoveries appears, the same question quietly returns. Could Atlantis have been real? I don't claim to have the final answer. No one does. But I believe the question itself is worth exploring. Because the deeper we look into the past, the more we realize that human history may still contain chapters we have not yet uncovered. Stories buried beneath sand, jungle, and ocean water. So tonight, I want to take you on a journey into one of the most enduring mysteries ever recorded. We will return to ancient Greece, to the philosopher who first wrote about Atlantis. We will examine the story he told and why it has fascinated people for more than 2,000 years. We will explore the theories that tried to explain where Atlantis might have been, and the underwater discoveries that have kept the mystery alive even today. Because somewhere between myth and history, between imagination and archaeology, there might be a truth that has been hidden for a very long time. And it all begins with a single story told in ancient Greece. A story written by Plato. A story about a civilization that once ruled the seas and then vanished without a trace. To understand why the story of Atlantis continues to linger in our imagination, we have to return to the moment when it first entered human history, when a philosopher in ancient Greece decided to write it down. Plato lived in Athens nearly 24 centuries ago, during a time when philosophy was not simply an academic pursuit, but a way of examining the deepest questions about human society. He was a student of Socrates and later the teacher of Aristotle, standing at the center of a tradition that shaped much of Western thought. Plato was not the kind of person who wrote fantasy tales for entertainment. His writings were usually careful explorations of ethics, politics, and the structure of an ideal society. That is precisely what makes the story of Atlantis so intriguing. The account appears in two of Plato's dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, written around 360 BC. In these works, Plato presents a conversation between several characters discussing the nature of the universe, the origins of civilization, and the organization of a just society. At a certain point in the dialogue, the conversation turns toward an ancient story that one of the characters claims to have inherited from earlier generations. According to the narrative, the story was originally told by Solon, one of the most respected lawgivers of ancient Athens. Solon, Plato writes, traveled to Egypt centuries before Plato's time. While there, he spoke with Egyptian priests who possessed records far older than the histories preserved in Greece. The priests told Solon about a civilization that had existed long before the earliest Greek kingdoms, a powerful island empire located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the narrow passageway we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. Beyond that gateway, they said, lay a vast island known as Atlantis. The description Plato provides is remarkably detailed. Atlantis was said to be a land blessed with fertile soil, rich forests, and abundant natural resources. The island supported a large population and an advanced society capable of remarkable engineering achievements. Rivers flowed through wide plains suitable for agriculture, while mountains provided protection and raw materials for construction. But what stands out most in Plato's description is the capital city itself. According to the dialogue, the city of Atlantis was designed in a series of enormous concentric rings, alternating circles of land and water that surrounded a central hill. Bridges crossed the canals connecting each ring, allowing ships to travel deep into the city. Massive defensive walls protected the outer districts, while harbors filled with vessels formed the heart of Atlantean trade and naval power. At the center of this elaborate structure stood the great temple of Poseidon, the god of the sea. Plato's narrative explains that Poseidon himself had chosen the island long ago and established the first royal family there. The earliest king was named Atlas, the son of Poseidon, and from him, the entire island took its name. Whether we interpret this as mythology or symbolism, the description suggests a society that combined political organization, engineering skill, and immense wealth. The Atlanteans, Plato says, possessed vast resources. Their buildings were decorated with precious metals, including a mysterious material called orichalcum that glowed with a reddish brilliance. Their fleets dominated the surrounding seas, allowing them to expand their influence far beyond their island homeland. Over time, Atlantis grew into a maritime empire. Plato claims that Atlantean power stretched across large portions of North Africa and into parts of southern Europe. Their armies conquered neighboring territories, and their naval strength allowed them to control vital trade routes across the Mediterranean world. Eventually, the Atlanteans turned their ambitions toward Greece itself. In Plato's story, the small city of ancient Athens stood as the last defense against Atlantean expansion. Despite facing an empire of immense power, Athens managed to resist the invasion. Plato portrays this moment almost as a moral contrast between two societies, one representing discipline and virtue, the other representing wealth and growing corruption. Because according to the narrative, Atlantis had not always been corrupt. Plato describes the earliest generations of Atlanteans as wise rulers who governed their society with moderation and respect for divine laws. But over centuries, prosperity began to change them. Wealth accumulated, power expanded. Gradually, the moral character of the civilization began to deteriorate. Ambition replaced wisdom, pride replaced restraint. And in Plato's philosophical worldview, such a transformation could not go unanswered. The gods, he writes, saw that Atlantis had lost the balance that once defined it. Zeus, the king of the gods, gathered the other deities to decide how the Atlanteans should be judged. Then, catastrophe followed. Plato describes a violent chain of natural disasters. The ground shook with powerful earthquakes. Floodwaters surged across the land. In what he calls a single terrible day and night, the entire island of Atlantis sank beneath the sea. The once mighty empire vanished, leaving only muddy waters where ships could no longer pass. What has always fascinated me about this account is how abruptly Plato's narrative ends. The dialogue Critias, which contains the most detailed description of Atlantis, stops suddenly in the middle of the story. We never hear Zeus deliver his judgment. The ending of the tale is left incomplete. Some scholars believe Plato never finished writing the dialogue. Others think the missing ending might have been lost over time. Either way, the result is strangely fitting. A story about a civilization that vanished without a trace, preserved in a text that itself ends unfinished. For centuries, historians treated the entire account as symbolic. They believed Plato created Atlantis as a philosophical warning about the dangers of moral decline in powerful societies. And perhaps that interpretation is correct. But there is something about the precision of Plato's description, the geography, the architecture, the timeline, that continues to provoke curiosity even today. Because if Atlantis were only an allegory, it is an unusually detailed one. And that lingering detail is what eventually inspired generations of explorers and writers to ask a question that still echoes today. If Plato's story was not entirely fictional, then where on earth could Atlantis have been? If Plato's account was more than a philosophical metaphor, then the question naturally becomes unavoidable. Where in the real world could Atlantis have existed? For many centuries, that question lingered quietly in the background of historical debate. Most scholars treated the story as an elegant allegory about the rise and fall of societies. But something interesting began to happen in the 19th century. A few thinkers started to look at Plato's description not as pure philosophy, but as a possible echo of something real that had been lost to time. One of the first people to seriously argue this idea was an American writer named Ignatius Donnelly. In 1882, Donnelly published a book with an ambitious title, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. The word antediluvian means before the flood, and that word alone reveals the core of Donnelly's argument. He believed that Atlantis was not a myth at all, but the center of a prehistoric civilization that existed thousands of years before the cultures we usually consider the beginning of history. Donnelly's theory was bold, even radical. He suggested that Atlantis may have been the original source of many ancient achievements that appeared in different parts of the world. The pyramids of Egypt, the architectural knowledge of early civilizations, the sudden appearance of agriculture, metallurgy, and complex language systems. Donnelly argued that these might all trace back to a single advanced culture that had once flourished in the Atlantic Ocean. In his view, a catastrophic event, something like the flood described in ancient myths, destroyed that civilization. Survivors scattered across the world, carrying fragments of Atlantean knowledge with them. Over generations, these survivors became the ancestors of later cultures. Today, historians generally view Donnelly's conclusions with skepticism. Many of his connections relied more on imagination than hard evidence. Yet his book had an enormous impact on public curiosity. For the first time in modern history, Atlantis was no longer just an ancient philosophical story. It became a mystery that people actively wanted to solve. And once that possibility entered the public imagination, the search truly began. Over the following decades, explorers, writers, and researchers proposed countless theories about where Atlantis might have been located. Some stayed close to Plato's original description, looking toward the Atlantic Ocean beyond the Strait of Gibraltar. Others began suggesting more unusual possibilities. One of the more famous ideas emerged in the 20th century, linking Atlantis to a region that had already gained a reputation for strange events. The Bermuda Triangle. In the 1970s, writer Charles Berlitz popularized the idea that Atlantis might lie somewhere near the Bahamas, buried beneath the waters of that mysterious area of the Atlantic. Berlitz connected the legend to reports of ships and airplanes disappearing in the Bermuda Triangle, suggesting that remnants of Atlantean technology, or perhaps unusual geological forces, might still influence the region. Part of the inspiration for this theory came from a discovery near Bimini Island. Divers exploring the seabed there found a formation consisting of large rectangular stone blocks arranged in a long, linear pattern. To the untrained eye, it looked surprisingly like a paved road or the remains of an ancient harbor structure. The formation became known as the Bimini Road. When photographs of the stones first appeared, many people were captivated. The blocks looked too orderly, too geometric to be random. Some enthusiasts suggested that they might be remnants of Atlantean architecture, perhaps the remains of a harbor wall or a road that once led into a great coastal city. However, geological studies later suggested a more natural explanation. The stones appear to be part of a type of fractured limestone that naturally breaks into rectangular shapes under certain conditions. Over time, Erosion and shifting sediments can arrange these stones in ways that mimic human construction. Still, even when science offers explanations, discoveries like Bimini Road have a way of keeping curiosity alive. Because once you start imagining the possibility of lost civilizations, it becomes difficult to stop asking questions. Another theory pushed the boundaries even further. Some writers proposed that Atlantis might not lie in the Atlantic Ocean at all, but beneath the ice of Antarctica. This idea was based on speculative theories about dramatic shifts in the Earth's crust. According to these proposals, entire land masses could have moved across the surface of the planet in prehistoric times. In this scenario, Atlantis might once have existed in a temperate region before geological forces carried it toward the South Pole, where it eventually became buried beneath ice. Modern geology does not support such rapid continental movements, and most scientists dismiss this idea. Yet it illustrates something fascinating about the Atlantis mystery. People have been willing to search almost anywhere on Earth to explain the story. Among the many theories that emerged over time, one stands out because it connects the legend of Atlantis with a real historical civilization. The Minoans. The Minoan civilization flourished on the island of Crete and surrounding islands in the Aegean Sea more than 4,000 years ago. Archaeological evidence reveals a sophisticated culture with impressive architecture, vibrant art, and complex trade networks that stretched across the Mediterranean world. Their cities contained grand palaces with advanced plumbing systems, colorful frescoes, and bustling ports filled with ships. In many ways, the Minoans were one of the earliest examples of a highly organized European civilization. Then, around 1600 BC, disaster struck. On the nearby island of Thera, modern Santorini, a massive volcanic eruption shook the region. It was one of the most powerful eruptions in human history. The explosion sent ash high into the atmosphere and triggered earthquakes across the surrounding islands. Even more devastating were the tsunamis that followed. Huge waves crashed into coastal settlements across the Aegean Sea, destroying ports and cities within hours. The Minoan civilization did not disappear overnight, but it was severely weakened by the catastrophe. In the following centuries, other powers rose and eventually replaced it. Some historians have suggested that stories of this disaster may have been passed down through generations. Over time, those memories might have transformed into the legend that Plato eventually recorded. If that idea is true, Atlantis might not have been a single lost continent at all. It might represent humanity's distant memory of a real civilization struck by overwhelming natural forces. But as intriguing as these historical theories are, something even more remarkable has happened in recent decades. As technology has improved and scientists have begun exploring the depths of the ocean more carefully, they have discovered something that earlier generations could only imagine. Ruins beneath the sea, actual cities that once stood on dry land, now resting silently on the ocean floor. And once real ruins began appearing beneath the ocean, the mystery of Atlantis no longer felt like a distant legend. It started to feel uncomfortably possible. For most of human history, the ocean floor was an invisible world. Sailors crossed the seas, but they had no way of knowing what lay thousands of feet beneath them. Entire landscapes could exist down there. Mountains, valleys, even the remains of ancient coastlines, and humanity would never see them. Only in the last century did technology begin to change that. Advances in diving equipment, sonar mapping, and deep-sea exploration opened a door that had been closed for thousands of years. And when explorers finally stepped through that door, they began finding something remarkable. Not myths, not legends, real places. One of the most intriguing discoveries lies near the southern edge of Japan, close to a small island called Yonaguni. The waters there are notoriously dangerous. Strong currents surge through the area and storms frequently batter the coast. It is not the kind of place where people casually explore the seafloor. Yet in 1986, a diver named Kihachiro Aratake was searching those waters for a better place to observe hammerhead sharks. Aratake had spent years diving in the region and knew the currents well. But during one particular dive, he noticed something that didn't resemble the chaotic rock formations divers usually expect to see underwater. Instead of irregular shapes, he saw enormous stone surfaces that seemed strangely organized. There were wide, flat terraces that looked almost like platforms, massive steps descending in sharp, straight lines, walls that appeared to rise from the seabed with angles so precise that many divers felt they were looking at something designed rather than formed. The more people explored the site, the more astonishing it appeared. The structure extended across a large area, roughly comparable to several football fields. Some sections resembled staircases leading upward through the rock. Others looked like corridors or roads carved into the formation. When I first saw images of the site, I remember feeling a strange mixture of fascination and hesitation. On one hand, nature is capable of producing surprisingly geometric shapes, but on the other hand, some of those formations seemed almost too deliberate. That tension between possibility and skepticism has defined the debate ever since. One of the researchers who became deeply involved in studying the site was Professor Masaki Kimura, a marine geologist from the University of the Ryukyus. Over the course of many years, Kimura repeatedly dived at Yonaguni and examined the formations in detail. Eventually, he proposed a controversial conclusion. Kimura believed that at least part of the structure might have been shaped by human activity. He pointed to markings on the rock that he interpreted as tool cuts, along with shapes that resembled carved figures and architectural features. If his interpretation were correct, it would mean the structure might once have stood above sea level before the ocean rose. Some estimates suggest that this could have happened between 8 and 10,000 years ago, during a time when global sea levels were still rising after the last ice age. But many geologists strongly disagree with that conclusion. They argue that the formations can be explained through natural geological processes. Sandstone tends to fracture along straight plains, producing sharp edges and layered surfaces. Over thousands of years, erosion can exaggerate those shapes, making them appear even more artificial. The debate remains unresolved. Yet Yonaguni is not the only discovery that forces us to reconsider how much of the past may lie beneath the sea. In the year 2000, marine archaeologists working in the Mediterranean Sea made another astonishing discovery near the coast of Egypt. Beneath the waters of Abu Qir Bay, divers began uncovering massive stone structures buried under centuries of sediment. Slowly, an ancient city emerged from the darkness. The city was known in Greek records as Heraklion and in Egyptian history as Thonis. For centuries, historians had read references to this city in ancient texts, but had never found physical proof of its existence. Many scholars believed it might simply be a legendary place mentioned in old writings. But there it was, statues of Egyptian gods rising from the seabed, temple walls covered in inscriptions, giant stone figures more than 5 meters tall, preserved beneath layers of sand and silt. As archaeologists continued exploring the site, they uncovered the remains of harbors, ships, ceremonial objects, coins, and jewelry. These discoveries revealed that Heraklion had once been a major port city, an important center for trade and religious rituals in the ancient Egyptian world. Then, over time, geological instability and rising waters caused the land beneath the city to collapse. The entire city slowly sank into the Mediterranean. For more than 1,000 years, it remained hidden beneath the sea, its existence doubted by historians until divers finally rediscovered it. When I think about discoveries like Heraklion, I'm always struck by how easily a civilization can disappear from memory. A thriving port, filled with merchants, priests, and sailors, can become nothing more than a forgotten name in a text until someone dives deep enough to find it again. And discoveries like these continue to appear. In 2022, researchers exploring deep waters near the Hawaiian Islands encountered a strange geological formation that looked almost like a road paved with rectangular blocks. The pattern resembled a path made from neatly arranged stones stretching across the seabed. At first glance, it seemed almost impossible to believe it was natural. But once again, geologists explained that such formations can occur when lava cools and fractures into regular patterns. Over time, erosion can expose those cracks, creating shapes that look surprisingly artificial. Nature, it seems, can sometimes imitate architecture. Still, these discoveries remind us of something important. More than 70% of Earth's surface lies beneath the ocean, and scientists estimate that we have explored only a small portion of it in detail. Vast stretches of the seafloor remain largely unknown. Every new expedition reveals landscapes we have never seen before, and every once in a while, those landscapes contain traces of human history, reminders that entire cities can vanish beneath the waves and remain hidden for thousands of years. Which raises a question that is difficult to ignore. If real civilizations can disappear beneath the sea and remain undiscovered for centuries, then how many others might still be waiting in the darkness below? Because Atlantis, as it turns out, is not the only legend about a lost world swallowed by the ocean. And when you begin to realize how easily entire cities can vanish beneath the ocean, another strange legend begins to feel less like fantasy and more like a reflection of humanity's ancient fears. That legend is called Lemuria. Unlike Atlantis, which comes to us through the writings of Plato, the idea of Lemuria appeared much later in history. In the 19th century, scientists studying the natural world began noticing something puzzling about the distribution of certain animal species, particularly lemurs. These animals lived in Madagascar and parts of India, yet they were absent in the regions between those two places. At the time, before the theory of continental drift was fully understood, some researchers proposed a bold explanation. They suggested that a vast landmass might once have stretched across the Indian Ocean, connecting those distant regions. Over time, they theorized, this land had sunk beneath the sea, leaving only scattered islands behind. They named that hypothetical continent Lemuria. Later scientific discoveries showed that plate tectonics offered a much better explanation for the movement of continents and species. The Earth's crust slowly shifts over millions of years, carrying land masses with it. Lemuria, in the strict geological sense, is no longer considered necessary to explain the distribution of animals. But something interesting happened after the original scientific theory faded. The name Lemuria did not disappear. Instead, it slowly transformed into something else, another story about a lost world. Over time, writers and mystics began describing Lemuria not simply as a vanished continent, but as the home of an ancient civilization. In these accounts, Lemuria was said to have existed tens of thousands of years ago, long before the earliest known cities of Mesopotamia or Egypt. Some stories portrayed the Lemurians as a peaceful and highly advanced people who lived in harmony with nature. Others claimed they possessed extraordinary knowledge about energy, astronomy, and the forces of the universe. There were even tales suggesting that the civilization lasted for tens of thousands of years before a catastrophic event destroyed it. Of course, none of these descriptions are supported by archaeological evidence. But what fascinates me is not whether those particular details are true or false. What fascinates me is the persistence of the idea itself. Across different cultures and time periods, humans have repeatedly told stories about civilizations lost to great floods or sudden disasters. Ancient Mesopotamian texts speak of a catastrophic flood that wiped out entire societies. Hindu traditions describe vast cycles of creation and destruction. Indigenous stories across the Americas tell of lands swallowed by rising waters. Even the famous story of Noah's Ark reflects this same theme. At first glance, these stories might appear unrelated, simply part of humanity's shared imagination. But when we look more closely at Earth's geological history, something interesting appears. Around 12,000 years ago, the planet was emerging from the last ice age. Massive glaciers that had covered large portions of the northern hemisphere began to melt. As they melted, enormous volumes of water flowed into the oceans. Sea levels rose dramatically. Coastlines that had once been dry land were slowly submerged beneath the waves. Entire valleys disappeared underwater. Regions where early human communities may have lived became part of the ocean floor. If settlements existed in those coastal areas, and archaeological evidence strongly suggests they did, then some of humanity's earliest villages and towns may now lie far beneath the sea. Imagine what that might have looked like to the people who lived through it. A shoreline that slowly crept closer each generation, rivers changing their courses, storm surges pushing further inland. Eventually, land that once supported farms and homes disappearing beneath rising water. Over time, survivors might have carried those memories with them as they migrated to higher ground. They might have told their children stories about lands that once existed but were swallowed by the sea. Stories about cities that vanished. Stories about lost worlds. And perhaps, as generations passed, those memories became legends. Maybe Atlantis is one version of that memory. Maybe Lemuria is another. Different cultures, different interpretations, but all pointing toward the same unsettling possibility that the distant past of humanity may have been more complex than we realize. What I find most humbling about this idea is not the possibility of a lost super civilization. It is the reminder that civilizations, even powerful ones, can be fragile. The societies we build today often feel permanent. Our cities rise into the sky with steel and glass. Our technology connects continents instantly. We map the surface of Mars and send probes beyond our solar system. But history shows that civilizations are not indestructible. Empires collapse. Cities fall silent. Knowledge is forgotten. Sometimes the traces of entire societies are reduced to a few scattered ruins buried beneath sand or jungle. And sometimes they disappear beneath the ocean. What continues to amaze me is how much of our planet remains unexplored. More than 70% of Earth is covered by water, yet large portions of the sea floor have never been studied in detail. Vast underwater landscapes remain hidden, waiting for technology and curiosity to reveal them. Every year, new discoveries remind us that the past still holds secrets. Underwater temples, sunken harbors, ancient shipwrecks resting quietly in the darkness. Each one whispers the same message. History is not finished revealing itself. So perhaps the real mystery of Atlantis is not simply whether it existed exactly as Plato described. Perhaps the deeper mystery is how many chapters of human history are still missing from the story we tell ourselves. Somewhere beneath the waves, there may be places where people once lived, built cities, worshipped their gods, and watched the horizon, never imagining that their world would someday vanish. And whether we call those places Atlantis, Lemuria, or something else entirely, the idea of lost civilizations continues to capture our imagination for a simple reason. because it reminds us that the past is larger, deeper, and more mysterious than we often assume. And somewhere in the quiet darkness of the ocean floor, pieces of that forgotten story may still be waiting for us to find them. When we step back and look at everything we've explored, from Plato's ancient story to modern discoveries beneath the ocean, it becomes clear that the mystery of lost civilizations is not only about Atlantis or Lemuria. It is about something deeper in the human experience. Throughout history, entire societies have risen to great heights, building cities, knowledge, and cultures that once seemed unshakable. Yet time and nature have repeatedly reminded us that no civilization is truly permanent. Earthquakes, floods, volcanic eruptions, and slow geological changes have the power to reshape the world in ways that can erase even the greatest human achievements. The ruins beneath the ocean and the legends passed down through generations suggest that parts of our past may still lie hidden, waiting to be rediscovered. But perhaps the most important lesson is not simply about whether Atlantis existed. The deeper lesson is about humility and awareness. History shows that progress does not guarantee permanence. The civilizations that once flourished believed their world would continue as it always had. Yet many of them disappeared, leaving only fragments of their stories behind. For us today, this realization can be powerful. It reminds us to value knowledge, to protect our environment, and to build societies that are resilient rather than fragile. It also encourages us to remain curious about the world, because the past still has much to teach us. In our own lives, this perspective can change how we think about the future. Instead of assuming stability is permanent, we can focus on wisdom, cooperation, and long-term thinking. The true legacy of any civilization is not its monuments, but the values and understanding it leaves behind. Now I'm curious about your thoughts. Do you believe Atlantis was a real civilization that disappeared in the distant past, or do you think it was simply a symbolic story created by Plato? Please share your opinion in the comments so everyone can read different perspectives and continue the discussion together. And if you enjoy exploring mysteries like this, consider subscribing to Hidden Truth videos. Your support helps the channel continue uncovering fascinating stories from history and bringing more thought-provoking content in the future.